should count them. They're uncountable. The word is rabah. The word ragbah is they're too much. It's beyond comprehension. It's beyond. And it's continual. It means it's infinitum. That word rabah means beyond the way of saying beyond number because it's infinite. So infinite, it should say, if I should count them, they are more in the sand. In other words, every intention, every thought that he has toward you and me, just kind of soak it in for a second. So every intention, motive, and reason he has for how he made you, what he's put into you, the experiences you've had, the greatness and value in that is unnumbered. What? So if God was to make a list, why did I make Preston go through this? Why did I make his body and mind and soul like this? The list would be unending. What? The intentions and motives and reasons behind why God put in my life, everything he did in my life and in your life is infinitum. What? That is, are you serious right now? That is amazingly crazy to think about that. There's no there's no throwaways, man. There's no like, oh, he did this, he did, I don't like that part of myself. Even the bad things about yourself, God says there's an intention and a motive and a reason behind everything I did as an artist. And the list of why, the intentions and the motive and the reason, the reasons and intentions and motives behind all the things I've done are endless. The value is endless. What I take from that. How he is the artist, what he makes of that. It's unconscionable to think about that. Yes?
Vicki said many of those things are attributed to the environment when they are God's.
Exactly, right? People say you're a product of your environment. No, you're a product of God. Because God made your environment. He put you in that environment. It's crazy. It's insane. It's really insane. You know, you think about my mother, bless her heart, she thinks that every child chooses their parent. So when a child is treated badly by the parent, she says that's the child's fault. If the child experiences a bad relationship with the parent and doesn't have a good home life, then she says, well, that's your fault. You knew it going in because you chose beforehand knowing full well who we were. That's kind of weird. What God's saying is, look, well, that's wrong. He's saying, look, every intention and motive and reason behind why I put you in that environment, why I made those parents be your parents, why I made that family tree that Lenny said, and those semblance of your genealogies of people, have you some of those traits in you physically and also personality-wise. I did all of that because the value and invaluable things that I take from that are endless. What? But I'm just a finite doofus. He's like, no. You're my artwork, and I'm telling you, the intentions and reasons and motives behind everything I did in your life, the benefits are endless. The value is infinite. Wow. So I got to stop saying I'm a doofus, right? Because God's saying that I'm a piece of art that he made. I'm an artwork that he made. And obviously he doesn't make no bad artwork, right? So everything about me, about you, has immeasurable, infinite value to him. Everything. Even the way you were raised ugly, like me. I was raised in an ugly environment. I know you were. I know other people online were, right? God says, doesn't matter. It matters, but doesn't matter in the sense that it doesn't diminish the truth that my intentions and motives and reasons behind everything you experience and how you were brought to be and your physical and spiritual and soulical being, the preciousness behind my intentions and motives and reasonings is endless. It's invaluable. Did you realize that as my finished artwork? And that question, I don't realize that. I don't understand that. That makes it's crazy to think. Yes.
Pam said, so can you unchoose them then when you want to?
No. I know, right? You can't unchoose. But the question is, no, you don't unchoose, right? You just have to. I mean, it's amazing how that you just. I ask myself the question and keep scratching my head, like, you know, if the intentions and motives and reasons by God were the way they were for my life and everything he made me and through how he made me, then I just need to continue to ask myself the question, as do all of us, you know, what is it that I could continue to grow and learn from the reasons and the ways in which he brought me through my life and who I am, physically, spiritually, soulically. So you just can't say, if I was not raised in that environment, no. You were raised in that environment, so stop saying that and just tell yourself, I thank God for being raised in that environment because and start seeing the benefits and the blessings and the value that's endless, he says. It's precious to him. So in verse 18, he says that. Then he says that they're innumerable. They're infinite. Verse 19, surely thou wilt slay the wicked, Surely thou wilt slay or kill the wicked, O God, Eloha. Depart from me, therefore, you bloody men. Now, by the way, he's saying he'll slay the ungodly. This is where David, by the way, turns introspective. So first, he's overwhelmed by being an artwork of the artist, that his intentions and motives and purposes behind every environment, every situation, physically, spiritually, before time, before he was even an embryo, when he was a sperm and egg put together to make from his mom and dad who he was. Everything about him was an intention and purpose and reason and motive of invaluable, innumerable, precious value to God. And he's like, I can't even, that's overwhelming to even, I can't even get that in my head. And now he's saying introspectively, he's going, but he was the blood murderer, remember? He killed Uriah. That's not good. So he's talking about, he's looking at himself here. Yes?
Piggy said, how does that work generationally? If your parents are also being moved by God's plan and you are a child of theirs, would their plan become your plan too because you are a child? Then does your plan by God start when you are an adult?
Well, it's a great, okay, so here's how I would always explain this, and this is where the churchianity gets the age of accountability incorrectly. So age of accountability is when someone is 20. From that point forward, they can't say, my mom and dad raised me like this, or didn't raise me like this, or I was in an environment like. God gives you from 0 to 20 to get through all that emotional frustration of forging of your understanding of growing into being a dependent adult. He knows there's a process of growing and learning in your mind, soul, spirit, and body. He knows that. But he gives you to the age of 20, all that latitude he gives you. Which, how do I know this? Because in the Old Testament, remember, 20 and under, he did not hold them accountable for their murmuring. But the other ones he did. The age of accountability has to do with not coming to know God. It has to do with those who know God, and when you're accountable to him directly is when you're over the age of 20. Otherwise, he gives you a pass, as if you followed the authority over you. So as long as you're looking to have you're trying to figure out why the authority over you has abused you, mistreated you, or loved you and said do it this way because you're honoring me, mom and dad, then you're excused. So you're always God's artwork, but you're in mom and dad's gallery until you're 20. Then he takes you out of their gallery and puts you in his own. And you can't ever say, well, I was in that gallery. He goes, look around you, child. You're in my gallery now. Stop with the excuses about the light wasn't on you and no one could appreciate you. You're in my gallery now, and I appreciate you, and I love you. So stop with the naysaying and stop with the blaming. You can't do that anymore. He says, I gave you till 20 to stop doing that. Now you answer to me. They're still influential in your life, but you answer to me now. So that's what he's saying. Yes?
He says, so God knows that the things you like may be unfulfilled by your parents' plan.
Correct. And he's saying that there's an invaluable reason and motive and intention behind that, though. Because when he moved you to his gallery, he wants to take the ills or the angst or the benefits and the blessings, and that you move to his gallery. He wants you to now have him be your counselor, truly your psychiatrist, your healer, your restorer, the lover of your soul. He wants to be that healer for you, that person who makes you whole. Yes?
Lainey said, that is so interesting because kids up to 20 are usually so busy with school and peer pressure, etc. So this is a huge fact that is missed so much.
No, I know, right? So as you continue to read this, this is why Ryan, our own grandson, was baptized at 20. As soon as he turned 20, on his birthday, he got baptized. Because before he was trying to be obedient and kind to his parents, and there was never a congruence of agreeance on that process. But to be respectful, I said, hey, we just can't go against what they say. But when he was 20, when it was his responsibility now, then he took ownership. On his birthday, we baptized him in the back of our yard in our jacuzzi. I almost slipped and fell, the rock behind my head, actually. I won't forget it. But it was a pretty awesome moment. I won't forget it. When he turned 20, on his birthday, he was baptized. He wanted to do that. Because I told him the truth of what I just said to you. He said, that's it. I'm going to do what he has to answer to God now for himself. And before he had a hall pass, if you will. Not anymore. Not when you're 20. No more hall pass. The hall pass is revoked. Now you enter to God himself. So I'm going back to verse 20 through 24 when he says, for they speak against thee wickedly. In other words, the ungodly, the murderers. He said the bloodthirsty people. He said, thy enemies, they take thy name in vain. So they use your name, again, with just vanity, with no purpose. They're your enemies. They're devising evil against you. And he calls them bloodthirsty, which are the word for murderer. Now I want you to look at this. The word we say for murderers. Go to Psalm 51. And you'll see David, again, what he's doing is, like he did with the nethermost parts, about saying, I go to Sheol, you are there. The reason he said that was because he knew what the adulterous relationship was doing to him. It was leading him to Sheol, his punishment for being in iniquity. He's doing it here again with the bloodthirsty comment. When you first read it, you think he's talking about being self-righteous, going, I hate those that you hate. He's talking about being disgusted with himself. He's saying, I love myself a lot less in those moments of my sin than I'd love myself more when I'm living for you. That's what he's saying. I've never understood that until I realized what he's talking about, the bloodthirsty issue. He's not looking outwardly. He's looking inwardly. If you don't believe me, watch this. Go to Psalm 51. You'll see his own words. Psalm 51, you can get perspective on this. Look in verse 51. Chapter 51 of Book of Psalms. 51, David wrote this as well. Psalm 51, verses 10 through 12. Or excuse me, through 13. Read this. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit, or a firm foundation spirit within me. That word create is the word bara. It means out of nothing. In other words, he was just crushed and devastated. He wanted a brand new spirit. He felt betrayed. Himself. He betrayed himself. He wanted something fresh and new. He says, please renew or restore. Create a new heart, but he wanted to restore his spirit, a firm spirit within me. Create me a new heart, but give me a restored, refreshed spirit. Verse 11, cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore, meaning to give back, return, shub, return to me the joy of your salvation. And uphold, or support me, that the word is samak, support me with your free spirit. No, the word is his generous, the word is a nadib. It's your generous, noble spirit. Why do you say this? Because then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will be converted unto you. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O God, thou God of my salvation, and my tongue will sing aloud of your righteousness. He's calling himself a blood guilty sinner. Why? Because he murdered Uriah. So when he's talking later, he murdered a woman's husband. The father of his unborn child would have been his child to raise. Not his biological, but still nonetheless would have been his child to raise. How dare you, because it's your biological child. You already committed one sin by committing adultery. Now you're going to murder the guy who that's his wife? You're going to murder him? So 139, when he says in verse 19 about the turn aside from me, you bloody men, he means he's talking about himself, how he's aligning himself with the murderers, that he was just like that. He's no different than these ungodly people that took God's name in vain. That means that they associated the things of God to that which is fruitless, void, empty, hollow actions and thoughts. He did that. And that's why he says, do I not hate them, O Lord, that hate thee? Do I not lesser love the people like myself who did this? That's what he's talking about. He's disgusted with himself. Am I not grieved with those? Am I not loathing those who resist me? Who resist you, who resist you? And the word here, as he goes into it, and he says, the word loathing is again to grieve deeply. And there's verse 22 when he says, I have hated them with a perfect hatred. That means a complete and uttermost hatred. But he's talking about himself and how he was a bloodthirsty person himself, because he's the one who murdered Uriah, and he's associating himself, and he's disgusted with his own nature of his own sin, given all the truth he just said. In other words, he's saying, I wanted you to know introspectively, after all I've said, I understand about who you are. boy, am I disgusted with myself. Knowing what I know as you're the artist, knowing who I am in your eyes, how I lived is disgusting. It's deplorable. I don't love that person. I hate that. I lesser love that person. I love the person better when I was obeying you, when I was blessed by you, when I was acknowledging you in my life. I don't like that version of me. So he starts with, search me because you've known me. O Chave. Now watch this. At the very end, verse 22, he says, I hate them with a perfect or complete hatred. I count them my enemies. In other words, he himself was an adversary against those who were also adversaries of God, that were also now adversaries of him. He was an adversary himself of God. He lesser loves the adversaries because he knows how that was a lesser love relationship he had with God at that time. God's presence was there, but in a lesser way. Ooh, ouch. So what does he say in verse 23? He says, search me, O God. He's calling himself out again. He's saying, my conclusion of this psalm is to then introspectively conclude with how I started. Please cross-examine me. Please. Please know that I've changed. Please know that I've learned. I led off with this entire psalm acclimating to who you are and what you've been in my life. I have remembered, I have recalled, but I've called myself out for my mistakes, and I lesser love myself for those mistakes. But please cross-examine me. You see if I'm being genuine. I don't trust myself. You alone, God. You do it. You know my heart. You know past, present, and future of how my mind, heart, and will is. That's his word for heart. And he says, proof me. Well, the word is bashan. Now, this is different. This is a scary question, or statement he's asking God. So now he starts by saying, search me. He ends by saying, search me, but he said, and test me, prove me, bakan. In other words, put me to task. Do what you did to Father Abraham to me. Whoa. Dude, you know what you're asking for. That's insane. You want God to test you. God's tests are extreme. You don't believe that? Ask Abraham. That was not funny. That was extreme. He's asking God to cross-examine him again after coming to a place of acknowledgement of his sin and wanting to be restored. But he wants to be restored so badly. He said, God, please cross-examine me. I don't trust myself, but I want you to test me. I want you to test me to see if I'm in the right place now again. If I'm back to where I was when you and I had this great relationship. Test me. You know my thoughts. Ooh, the word thoughts here is not this here. It's not his purpose. The word here for thoughts is serapim, or not serapim, serapim, so I said it wrong, serapim, which means his anxious doubts. He knows his doubts. That's why I'm saying he didn't trust himself. He doesn't trust himself. He goes, you know my anxious doubts. And you see if there be any wicked or contorting way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. In other words, he's saying, you see what it appears to be. You see what it appears to be. You know, and the word wicked is atzeb. Please show me if there's a harmful idol in my life, or I'm focusing more of my mind on, or whether it's mental or physical, whatever it is. Before it was Bathsheba, yeah. Then it was my power play of not wanting to be embarrassed. Then it was my guilt. Then it was this. Then it was that. I'm tired of living that way. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He just said, Lord, just please test me and guide me and lead me into the way that's for the ages, for the everlasting, he says. So Psalm 139, a couple of takeaways I thought, and I'll write the rest of it on the board later, was that one, he starts off with an homage, if you will. Three takeaways I thought were different than what most people teach, is that it's an homage of David, to look back on God's influence in his life from beginning to present. Secondly, it's not about him being fearfully, wonderfully made, but he continually talks about how the I am is fearful and wonderful, and how he's the piece of art. He's the artwork of this master artist, and he can't get over the purpose and intention that he marvels by. But he calls himself out thirdly at the end by saying, I don't love myself as much when I was in that sinful state. I love myself less in that state. I want the other state of mine that we had before. Please, 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 please cross-examine me. I don't trust myself. Put me to the test. root out the idols and things that are wicked in me, please. I don't want it anymore. I'm done with it. He starts and ends with a humility of calling himself out. So a person who wants to live a trustworthy, integrity, honest, filled life, ask God to cross-examine them. Wow. And therefore, you cannot do that and have an attitude of self-justification. You cannot, in doing that, have an attitude of indifference. You cannot, in doing that, have an attitude of belligerence. You must be pliable, teachable, humbled, contrite. Jesus says it this way, poor in spirit, right? You have to be like David is, and a broken and contrite heart God will not despise, he says. This is what he's displaying in Psalm 139. But he does it through magnifying who God has been, who he is, and recognizing from that who he is. And what a wow to me. It's a wow. Psalm 139 has always been a wow. It's even more of a wow. It always becomes more of a wow because of who God has made us to be, and every intention and motive and reasoning behind everything in our lives is because he, the artist, the master craftsman, used all of that and is continually using all that with an infinitum of reasonings. Why? Of invaluable, precious, manifold blessings. I don't know, I don't understand that, but thank God for it. Yes?
I think about, what Isaiah, come now let us reason together, saith the Lord, though your sins be as scarlet, will be white as snow. And of all the things that he did, the thing that he said, woe is me for, is to have unclean lips.
Unclean lips, yeah.
Of everything, whatever else he did, that's the thing he regretted the most.
That's true. Yeah. And yes, interesting. You're right. Isaiah's before the Holy of Holies, and he says, out of all the things he could have said, he says unclean lips. He doesn't say unclean heart or soul or spirit. He says lips. Interesting. Of what he would say or not say. Or it's just, but it goes, I mean, this other verse here when this verse 5, when he hedges me about that whole for God to just kind of, I said it was somebody, it says so God basically says from eternity past, all the way through to eternity present, to eternity future, I should say. So God considered every single possibility, all the tentacles that came out of every possibility, all the consequences all the things that would come. If he chose this one, what would happen? He chose all the tentacles of the possible. And he says, you know what? You're supposed to be right there. What? You're supposed to be right where I have you. You're supposed to be raised by exactly those parents, be in exactly that situation, live in exactly that house, and then, no. And you're like, are you kidding me right now? He says, nope. That's insanity. That's what he means when he says, he's hedged behind me and before me. He's considered every possible variable in its width and in its depth. And he said, Father knows best. I have you exactly where I want you. You're in my gallery of testament artwork, of craftsmanship. I want to move you to my gallery of inheritance. Son, daughter, would you please look at yourself and see that's what I want? Please see yourself the way I see you. And live the way that you should live because of that. Because I, the artist, am going to move you to the highest station in my gallery. Want to come with me? That's basically what he's saying. And we're like, no, I'm regretting and I'm gonna moan and bone. And he's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? It makes no sense. He's giving you a chance to reach. He's reaching out. Why would you not take his hand? Man, go for that walk all day long, right? So, anyway, let's end with prayer and we'll close our time out for today. So, Father, we thank you for this time we've had opportunity to gather, to learn, glean, understand from your word. Thank you so much for your insight, for your truth, for your love, for your provision, for making us a craftsmanship and artwork of your pleasing, of your nature that's telling us that every intent and motive and reasoning behind how and why and through that you made us, the value to you is endless. It's innumerable. It's infinite. And I just can't even put my arms around that. I know that you're infinite. I know that you're beyond measure. But to say that the things in us, your artwork, your craftsmanship is also the reasons and intentions and motives are endless. Help me to understand. Help us all to gravitate toward your invitation of your outstretched hand of letting us see, to even know these things, that you're the artist behind this craftsmanship and to the details of what you've given us insight into you, into your word, for the reasons of drawing closer to us, so that you would have us draw closer to you. So be with us, encourage us, Continue to edify us, cleanse us, and remind us of your love and your provision. Thank you so, so much for everything you do and have done and will yet do. In Jesus, Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. All right.